Hello, welcome to Rando Tech Info and our review of the Galaxy Watch 5. You can pay full price and grab the 40mm version of this watch from a bunch of different brick and mortar and online outlets for $280, with the 44mm version setting you back an additional $30 and cellular connectivity setting you back another $50. Or you can take advantage of the deals going on over at Samsung.com and grab one of these watches for a lot less, so long as you are willing to also pick up one of Sammy's newest folding pocket computers. The Galaxy Watch 5 is the direct sequel to the Galaxy Watch 4. There is no Watch 5 Classic this year because the Classic has been replaced by the 5 Pro, which offers some additional fitness features and a larger battery, but has ditched the rotating bezel. However, Samsung is still keeping the Watch 4 Classic in its lineup, so if you want some of that sweet physical rotating bezel action, it is at least still an option. Last year, I went with the 4 Classic, but this year, since I am a more casual fitness enthusiast and didn't really want the extra girth of the 5 Pro, I went with the box standard Watch 5. And coming over from the Classic, I have to say just how light and comfortable the standard Watch 5 really is. The Watch 4 Classic was a rather heavy watch at 50 grams, while the standard Watch 5 comes in at under 30 grams. And the difference is very noticeable. It has a somewhat similar feel to my TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra, which up till now has been my go-to fitness watch because of how light and comfortable it is. But the Watch 5 actually weighs 12 grams less than that watch, which will probably make this my new sleeping and exercise wearable of choice, at least until MacLeod drops their new flagship smartwatch later this year. Looks-wise, the Watch 5 is almost impossible to distinguish from the Watch 4, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not a particularly flashy design, especially with the black casing, but it's versatile and can be worn in almost any situation. Also, like the Watch 4, I do not care for the cheap-feeling hunk of inflexible rubber the Watch 5 comes with out of the box. But since the watch uses a standard 20mm strap, swapping it out isn't a big deal. For full disclosure, the Watch 5 is a couple of grams heavier than the standard Watch 4. This is most likely due to the bigger battery in the Watch 5, and I think most people will be okay with that trade. Let's go ahead and get into the battery right now because it's actually one of the handful of upgrades Samsung has brought to the Watch 5 series this year. The battery on the Watch 5 is actually around 13% larger than the battery on the Watch 4. And you can see some slightly better battery life as a result. With continuous stress monitoring on and the always-on display off, I typically lost about 50% charge in 24 hours. And while that is by no means great, it's still better than what I was getting with the 4 Classic. However, I honestly think the bigger upgrade here has to do with charging speed. The Watch 5 supports USB-C 10-watt charging compared to the 5-watt charging available on the Watch 4. This allows me to top off the watch in the mornings after I wake up before I leave the house. It is hard to get a full charge because charging does slow down noticeably once you cross the 90% charge threshold. But if I charge the watch every day, never falling below 40%, I can always at least get up to 90% charge in 30 minutes. This is a similar pattern I was able to pull off with the Fossil Gen 6, and it's a completely sustainable system that allows you to use the watch for sleep tracking and everyday use. So for me, the battery management on the Watch 5, while not great, is good enough. One of the other noteworthy upgrades to the Watch 5 is the display. You get the same bright, gorgeous-looking screen found on the Watch 4, but the 5 is packing a sapphire crystal display, which should make the 5 considerably more durable, which is nice because with the absence of a physical bezel, that pretty screen is probably going to take some abuse. That combined with the watch's aluminum casing, IP68 water and dust resistance rating, and 5 ATM standard certification should make for a capable hiking and fitness and even swimming companion. Speaking of fitness, the Watch 5 is supposed to have a redesigned underside that allows the sensors to lay flatter on your wrist for better biometric readings. In my own use, I haven't really noticed much difference, but perhaps some smaller wristed folks will. Samsung has also added an infrared temperature sensor to the Watch 5, which they claim will be used for better sleep tracking. However, no one has been able to test this new feature yet because it hasn't actually been activated. Hopefully this won't take too long to happen. However, since some of the other health tracking features like blood pressure monitoring still have not been activated in certain regions on the Watch 4 due to a lack of regulatory approval, I wouldn't hold your breath waiting for the temperature sensor to go live anytime soon. Fortunately, overall fitness and health tracking on the Watch 5 is still more than solid. You get more typical biometric tracking like a heart monitor, oxygen monitoring, and stress tracking, as well as some more exotic options like an ECG for detecting your heartbeat rhythms and body composition analysis so you can literally see what you're made of. Once again, assuming those features are approved to work in your region. One other thing worth mentioning is the ECG and body comp features will only work when paired with a Samsung device. That is because both of those features require use of the Samsung Health app, and that app is not available for non-Sammy devices. This also means if you use Samsung's Exercise app, you can't view your exercise stats on your phone, but you can always still view them on the watch. Personally, I prefer Google Fit anyway, which can be downloaded to the Watch 5 via the Play Store. Granted, Google Fit doesn't quite have the same level of tracking or exercise options as the Samsung Health app, but since I can sync my Fit account to all of my Wear OS smartwatches, it is my exercise tracker of choice. Google Play Store access is still the primary reason you can say Samsung's latest wearables are even running Wear OS. The Watch 5 definitely retains the Tizen OS feel of previous Samsung offerings. And this time around, the Watch 5 comes running Samsung's latest OS, One UI Watch 4.5 out of the box, which is apparently Samsung's custom take on Wear 3.5. which bears a striking resemblance to Wear 3.0. The upgrade comes with more watch faces, an improved keyboard, and the promise of being able to use Google Maps offline at some point in the future. Up to this point, the only difference I have noticed in my day-to-day use with Wear 3.5 is I was able to download Amazon's Alexa on the Watch 5, which I am unable to do on the Watch 4, so I'm guessing there are other additional apps that will also work on Wear 3.5 as well. Not that I'll be using Alexa that much, because you can download and use my assistant of choice, the Google Assistant, on the Watch 5 right out of the box. Last year, when the Watch 4 was released, Samsung promised the Google Assistant would become available to use in a future update. And it did, 10 months later. So it's nice that this year with the Watch 5, we can download the Assistant on day one. However, if you don't want to mess around with downloading any Assistant, you can always use the pre-installed Bixby. Hey Bixby, what's the boiling temperature for water?
Do you agree to provide location data to the Weather Channel to process requests?
Really? What's the boiling temperature for water?
It's 75 degrees in Water Street, St. Charles, Missouri right now.
What? Yeah. Actually, since the Watch 5 can run all three of the big-time digital assistants, I was thinking about doing a comparison video between them, so if that is something you think you would be interested in watching, let me know down in the comments. And while you're typing and clicking around anyway, if you are enjoying this video, it would be greatly appreciated if you also clicked the like button and considered subbing to the channel.
I'll give it serious thought.
Finally, it's worth noting that the Galaxy 4 and 5 series are still some of the only watches running any version of Wear 3.0. In fact, the only other watch running Wear 3.0 as of the publishing of this video is the Mont Blanc Summit 3, but its $1,200 plus price tag will make that option irrelevant for most people. Everything else about the Watch 5 is familiar, if not identical, to the Watch 4. It uses the same Exynos W920 processor with 4.5 gigs of RAM, so performance is about the same. Call quality is great. Hey, you're on Rando Tech Info. Say something interesting.
A Rubik's Cube is always 20 moves or less from being solved.
That is actually interesting. The speakers are good enough to listen to some tunage if you forget your buds. And connectivity is top tier. I hardly ever had any issues with my Watch 4 Classic's Bluetooth connection, and with the addition of Bluetooth 5.2 on the Watch 5, that connectivity has only been better. The watch and my phone can be on a completely different floor of my home, and the watch still picks up all of my alerts and notifications without issue or delay. Finally, before we put a bow on this sucker, there are a couple of other things I did want to mention. First, if you want to pair this watch to a non-Samsung Android device, you can certainly do that. And with the exception of some of the aforementioned health features, the watch should work just fine. You will just need to download the Galaxy Wearable app from the Play Store. Sadly, the app is not available on the Apple App Store, so iPhone users are out of luck.
That sucks.
I also have to mention that while the watch has for the most part performed very smoothly out of the box, there has been an issue with my alarms. Whenever I set an alarm with the Google Assistant, the alarm simply doesn't go off. And if I ask the assistant to show me my alarms, they simply aren't there. Hopefully this is something that will be fixed in an update in the near future, but since alarms can be kind of important, I thought it needed to be mentioned. So at the end of the day, what have we learned about the Galaxy Watch 5? To put it simply, while I'm sure Mavoy and Fossil will have their say in the next few months, I think the Watch 5 is the best Wear OS smartwatch you can buy right now, and I think its $280 starting price point is reasonable. I think the bigger question that needs to be answered is if you already have a Watch 4, should you upgrade? The biggest improvements of the Watch 5 are its display durability and combination of improved charging speeds and better battery life. If those things are important to you, then I think an upgrade might be worth the asking price. However, if you don't see a lot of value in those upgrades, then I think you can definitely take a pass and wait until next year and see what the Galaxy Watch 6 has to offer. Well, that's all the information I have for one day. As always, I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Rando Tech Info, signing out.